The weather is gorgeous. You grab your whips to head outside and do some cracking, one of your favorite things to do. You get a couple pops off and you realize you need to replace the popper on your whip. So you go to your replacement kit to grab a fresh popper and you realize you are out of new poppers. This means that you can't crack your whips anymore. No more fun, no more joy. To make sure this never happens to you, I'm gonna show you how to make your own poppers from scratch. First, I'm gonna show you how to make some easily with materials that you could find at any hardware store. Then, I'm gonna show you how I make WhipWorks poppers. It's a beautiful day outside, so I'm gonna walk down to the local hardware store and pick up some materials to make our first poppers out of. I picked up this, where is it? Nylon twine while I was at the hardware store. There were a bunch of different materials that could have worked, but this is the material that I used in high school to make poppers, so I know that it'll work. Let's get these poppers made. First thing we need to do is cut an 18 or 16-inch piece of string. So this nylon line is not the best material to make poppers out of, but you may already have some lying around the house. So in that case, it is perfect. Before I get too deep into this tutorial, I guess I should take a second and tell you what a popper actually is. So this is the piece that is tied or attached to the fall of your whip. This part here is left to fray. Since the popper is what actually breaks the sound barrier, they take a beating, so they need to be replaced regularly. I don't know why that's kind of fun. If you realize that you don't have a popper on your whip, replace it as soon as possible to protect your whip. Let me cut off 16 inches here real quick. Okay, so we've got our 18-inch piece of thread here, and now we're just going to take a clamp. I love these little ones that are used for film that's just enough pressure for me, but here, let me show you how this works. So I'm gonna put part of it on the table here. I'm gonna clamp it in, and then back up. I'm gonna do the most important part of this process, which is the twist. So I'm going to twist with the direction that is already established by the string. So I'm just spinning this here, and now you'll see if I move it in, it's twisting on itself. So we're gonna take advantage of that. I'm gonna choose about the halfway point on here as best I can. I'm gonna hold it taut, firm here. I'm gonna twist this on itself. I'm gonna match the tips so that it's about like in half here. And then I'm going to twist the direction that it wants to twist in to encourage it to lay nicely. And then I'm gonna pinch here where it about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way up. Pinch it. And then I can go on ahead and unclamp it here. And I am just going to do a simple overhand knot. And just pull that taut. And then kind of pinch it here, pull it. And there you have it. That's a popper. Now for this knot, you could get more fancy. There's a knot called a blood knot, which is a more permanent knot. It makes more sense for this application, but poppers don't last that long as it is. So I find that taking the extra time to do a blood knot just really isn't necessary. Now I'm gonna show you how to make the poppers that I make for WhipWorks. I make two types of poppers. I make these nylon poppers, which is the black one you see here, and then I make Kevlar poppers, which is the orange one. The nylon poppers are super cheap and they crack really well, but they don't last very long. The Kevlar poppers also pop very well, and they last longer. However, the material is more expensive. I make the nylon poppers a little differently than the other poppers. So as you can see, this T70 thread is significantly thinner than the stuff that we were just using. So in order to make a popper of this material, we have to fold it on itself a couple times to give it the girth that it needs. A tool that you're really going to need for nylon poppers is a pair of forceps. They're super cheap. You can find them on Amazon. I'll have a link to a listing down below. Fun story, my grandpa is a retired veterinarian and I inherited his forceps. His initials are still in this pair of forceps from when he was a veterinarian. I think that's kind of cool. So to make these poppers, I measure 72 inches of material. So let me get 36, and then I'll fold it upon itself. I've got a 72-inch piece of thread here, and I'm going to hold the two ends together, and then I'm gonna kind of massage it down and find the other end, and I'm gonna fold that up, and I'm gonna match it with our other two ends, and then I'm gonna take the forceps and I'm gonna clamp it at that end there. Now, I'm gonna hold the other end and I'm gonna do the twist. But this time the twist looks a little different. The twist is simply holding it up in the air and spinning the forceps. It's kind of fun. So we're just gonna build that torque. I don't know if torque's the right word here. If you see here, if I move it, it's automatically kind of kinking there, and that's what you want. Holding it with the pinky of the hand that is holding the forceps, I'm gonna kind of wrap this up on itself, and I'm gonna hold it in place on the forceps. Now, as I'm holding this, I'm gonna stretch it down with my other hand. I'm going to, as we did before, twist it in the direction that it wants to go in. Then, I'm gonna pull these two pieces apart, making sure that I keep the shape of the popper that we want. Pull it down about 3/4, 2/3 of the way up. And then I'm gonna do a simple overhand knot, just like we did before. And then pull it taut, undo the clamp, simply trim the ends here, which are a loop. And there you have it, a nylon popper. Extra tip here, if you're making a ton of these nylon poppers, what I'll do sometimes at my desk is I'll have a little rig with some filming equipment that I have that I can just hang the nylon thread onto, and then I spin it from there. So it's a little bit faster, you can go through more without getting tired, so it's a nice little tip. Now I'm gonna make some poppers out of one of my favorite materials. This is 200-pound Kevlar line, or sport line, sport cord. It has a bunch of different names. I have a listing in the description down below for you. I make these just like I did our nylon string poppers here. So I'm going to take a 16-inch piece so that we have like a 7 to 8 inch long popper. Give it a cut here. Now, be really careful with this Kevlar line. It will eat up your scissors. So when I cut this line, I make sure that I cut it as deep down in the scissors as I possibly can. I care about that because I sharpen my scissors on a fairly regular basis, so I like to keep them nice and sharp. Now, I'm gonna grab our little clamp. I'm gonna stick it onto the table, about 1 inch here or so. And then I'll scoot back and do the twist. Again, I am twisting with the direction that is already determined by the string, by the Kevlar line here. And now that I feel that there's a lot of tension, you see, you move it in on itself and it does that thing. Now I'm gonna find our center point, wrap this up on itself, give myself a little extra in the part that I'm holding here. You see, here, let me see here. You can see here I have like an extra like 1/2 centimeter or so at the top. I'm gonna encourage the twist. I'm gonna go on ahead and stretch this out to the point where I want it. Again, 2/3 to 3/4 of the way up the whip, up the popper. Pinch it at that spot, unclamp with that longer end. I'm going to do a simple underhand knot. And there you have it. That's a Kevlar popper. These things are great. I used to really love the Kevlar poppers because this Kevlar line comes in different colors, but I just realized this nylon string comes in a ton of different colors. Look at all the colors, dude. So I'm excited to pick up a bunch of different color samples and make a bunch of poppers. Quick pro tip for whip enthusiasts. When I go to crack my whips, I plan ahead and I have with me what I call a little whip triage kit. In this kit, I always have with me a fid, my wide-eyed needle, a lighter, a pair of scissors, and an assortment of spare poppers. So I'm gonna gather this kit together and head out to crack my whips. So I've been kind of cracking around, testing out these different poppers, and I have my stock whips here, one of which has the regular nylon, one of which has our new cheap from the hardware store nylon. Let's test them out. They both crack just fine. I can't really tell a difference in their performance. The next test would be to find out how long each of them last, their endurance, how many cracks you can get out of them. That'll have to wait for another video though. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to crack on that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below which type of material you like to make your poppers out of. And as always, happy cracking.